If you ask a TF2 fan one of the greatest strengths of the game, consistently you'll hear mentioned the exuberant, lovable personality of the characters. Scout, the hyperactive, cocky snot that drives you insane. Medic, the psychotic healer who plays God. Soldier, the lead water-filled regular army. Patriot, heavy weapons. Over 3 years ago, Valve established the Meet the Team videos that help capture each of the 9 mercenaries' personality through mockumentaries and whatever footage they could get of Pyro. So we have clear-cut ideas what these guys are like. Hopefully, most likely. You write a character enough, you tend to slip up a bit or two, especially if you're not the only one writing them and years start to pile up. You can love these characters, but do you know who they are? Well, I'll be the judge because I thought this first, which is the best qualification so far. It's not enough we determine what the most ideal traits each Merc has. It's important they are consistent throughout their appearances. It'll be a simple ranking, 1 through 9. 9 being the least consistent hot mess of the bunch to one of the most aligned, believably consistent in how they appear and act. Things like character development or deterioration will be considered. If a character can have a motor, then there'll be a car. If a character can have a motive, I'll consider it unless they start doing it on purpose, because now they're just being mean. The constituents will be any in-game voice lines or in-game actions, excluding any obviously off-the-wall or characters possess Scream Force voice lines. The TF2 website description of each Merc, all the Meet the Team videos, plus any other Valve official TF2 videos, expiration date, any comics on the website, and of course the serialized 7-comic storyline. Anything community made like Gmods or SFMs or even things like Poker Night at the Inventory or End the Line, I won't consider it. No, this is purely as Valve's fault. Get. Oh. This may be a controversial decision, but I'm also going to assume any actions of a red version or blue version of a Merc are the same, only because I'm colorblind though. I also want to set up a rough timeline of the events of the Gravel Wars, namely 3 segments. The first segment is really anything that happens in game sans MDM, which also includes any comics that are not part of the overarching story and any videos like Scream Fortress, Heavyverse, Pyro, and Expiration Date, which all released after MDM, but will soon happen before the dissolution of Team Fortress. The second segment is any event pertaining to MDM not related to the serialized 7 comic story, and the third segment contains what I think the end or present of the timeline, the events of the Streamline comics. Establishing a timeline might not be that important, but essentially think of comprehensive beginning and ending stories as endless war. But I digress. Let's start off the most likely to be an elephant in the room. Believe it or not, the character shrouded in ambiguity and mystery is the least consistent. Unless you want me to overanalyze Pyro playing with a lighter and Meet the Medic for 7 hours, Pyro didn't really have an established character until Meet the Pyro, where it's revealed Pyro sees the world as sunshine and rainbows. His flamethrower shoots bubbles and her fire axe is a lollipop. From then on, Pyro is considered childlike and naive and is treated as such by those around them. Well, they had a late start, but if they were to life the party, then maybe they'd have consistency from that point on. Except why does Pyro in part 3 of the comics, A Cold Day in Heck, get mad at a bear for saying fire is dangerous? Does Pyro know it's fire or not? Why does Pyro see the world through Pyrovision when equipping the Pyrovision goggles in-game for Pyro show this world of sunshine and rainbows? Shouldn't this be on by default? I'm just saying, if this game was lore accurate, every Pyro player would always have Pyrovision on by default, and probably couldn't be able to turn it off. I'm sure they'll like and appreciate this change. Also, what is Pyro? In Meet the Spy, they have options if Pyro's a man or a woman, but I thought Pyro was a defensive class. I just don't get it. The ambiguous nature of Pyro doesn't really work well for consistency for a personality. I'm not a psychologist, but I'm pretty sure Valve wasn't either for this process. Considering how Pyro's voice lines in the game start off as just someone speaking coherently if they weren't being muffled to how they almost never talk, or at least make simple "offs," I think it's safe to say Pyro is a case of reactionary rather than proactiveness. Soldier is one of the big 3, which consists of him, Scout, and Heavy. The big 3 are the most prevalent for making stories out of. This trio in particular is used the most in Team Fortress stories, and you can consider them the main marketable characters. As such, they get more exposure, which gives them a disadvantage in this ranking. The more screen time, the more likely they are to break character. Soldier starts off as a regular army, all-loving American patriot. He talks to decapitated heads, gives contradictory speeches, has intense stubbornness and will, and overall really reminds me of characters from MASH and Catch-22, especially in his voice line.
We have you surrounded, at least from this side. You cannot burn me, I'm already on fire. Last one alive, lock the door.
Over time, his popularity and the zany shift of Team Fortress from wacky to wackier led to a surge in lol random humor. While Soldier is really funny in Expiration Date, it's the most glaring example. Sure, Soldier has always been crazy, but his obsession with teleporting bread and the fact he isn't as pedantic, favoring instead short one-liners, makes him feel a lot different compared to something like his appearance in the comics. Whether the storyline or one-offs, Soldier is pretty consistent in these portrayals and fits as a comic character very well. Where in Expiration Date, Soldier feels like a Kramer or a Spencer, here he is very consistent in his lunacy. He reassures Miss Pauling he is not in fact a robot after putting on a box. He assures Zana they won't actually be racist, and immediately after tells her to be racist. There's a common understanding on what his rationality is. He calls you Judas if you're a betrayer. He's fond of neck snapping. There's a common theme in the comics that's so dissonant in Expiration Date. Soldier's competency and looseness seem to depend on if you're playing it in-game or watching him in a video, or you flip a coin because Abraham Lincoln, one of the founding fathers, said Soldier helped him beat the commies. How much can I attribute this to Leadwater? It's not character development, a little of the opposite. But I just feel Soldier does something wacky, seems to be the only focal point for this character after all these years. Demoman? Demoman is a double-edged sword, which I think is to complement his one-eye peripheral. This will be a hard pill to swallow for all TF2 fans, but someone should have said this a long time ago. Demoman suffers from flanderization. I worry it's fatal. As TF2 developed, it became very clear that Demoman's alcoholism increased at an alarming rate. Yes, he liked to drink from time to time, but he still had other things going for him. I loved his little rants he would go into and meet the Demoman. His relationship with the other team soldier was wholesome and heartbreaking. He was a good son whether he had 3 jobs or not. His bio mentions a fierce temper. When's the last time he blew off some steam? Or had any? It just gets apparent how his only lines in Expiration Date refers to alcohol in some way. I mean, you know you have a problem when your main storyline in the comics involves having a fight with your liver. We have a unique instance in how we should address this though, don't we? If Demoman has always been about drinking, then isn't he consistent? Can you have a consistent personality if you're flanderized? I mean, if all other instances of personality are stripped down and he becomes a one-note character. Well, doesn't that meet the original confinements of what he was? Is this an easy way to secure the #1 spot? No, I cannot accept this any longer. I refuse to let this problem Demo has been having let him suffer. Demo, you can keep drinking, but the flanderization has got to stop. This guy had a Grimm's fairy tale relationship with Marasmus. He had a talking cursed sword he can riff with at a moment's notice. This is a character with so much potential, and everyone wants him to drink instead. Is this an allegory for real life? We could have a million more stories with how Demoman should be. Demoman should be like a strike of lightning, because he sometimes acts like a thunder. Demoman is this low because I personally cannot stand by any longer witnessing this degradation. Demoman has an explosive personality, loud, bombastic, with a sense of camaraderie and a great story to tell when the fighting's died down. Instead, people give him another drink, and then laugh. Believe it or not, the Merc who fits the spy thriller theme the most is the Scout. Probably wasn't expecting me to say Scout, huh? I wasn't either to scripts of Spy. Spy is the silent killer, the smooth ladies man James Bond-esque of the group. He is more than a class, he has class. Although as TF2 shifted from its original 60s thriller to fighting bread monsters, wizards, and equal-raised old men, Spy seems to shift on the dot on how seriousness he plays. I've been ragging on Expiration Date a lot, only because since it was meant to be an episodic comedy, the characters tend to act slightly different to accommodate the setting. In it, Spy shows a bit of pettiness and that he's not so above it all, while in the serialized comics, Spy is dry, dead sarcastic. Old Wounds shows a great example from his exchange with Miss Pauling. This is normal and serious, I swear. Spy's voice lines when on fire can be contradictory of itself.
I appear to have burst into flames. Fire! Fire! Fire!
The screaming. Spy's only weakness is in how serious he's portrayed. Other avenues, he's quite fine. His relationship with Scout is always the same, barring logical development. Spy ditching Scout during the Jungle Inferno trailer was a jerk move, but it wasn't character, so all is forgiven. He has a nice moment with the kid from a Smith story, which is a great parallel for how he subtly treats Scout as seen in Expiration Date and The Naked and the Dead. Spy always has a degree of class and a rich taste, and is always at Sniper's throat with a knife. And by throat, I mean back. Unlike the first third in this ranking, which can be portrayed very out of the wall, the differences in consistency start to thin out as we reach Spy onwards. Spy isn't widely all over the place, he's just a victim of being silly. And a filicide potentially every day, but I couldn't count that. Scout is the hyperactive, full of himself Boston who thinks he's a ladies' man. He has a headset which he only uses once, sounds accurate enough. Part of the big three, he's had a ton of stories over the years, and is always the young guy of the bunch who gets help from the others. For someone who's always trash talking, he always cares the most about his team, like in the Meet Your Match voice lines.
Hey, I'll say it. Everybody else here's too scared to say it, but I'll just say what everybody's thinking. We're all best friends.
Scout can't read and has his own deranged side like all the others when it comes to nonchalantly talking about battering people and losing organs. He's almost like some sort of baby face. It's his blaster. He acts a little too sane in the Jungle Inferno trailer, but when you're talking to a bunch of brick walls, I guess it's hard not to have to play the straight man. How well he does with girls isn't completely tied into personality, but dang it, there's so many instances of him failing. It's implied he's a virgin through voice lines, and how he's waiting for Miss Pauling to take the hint. How is she not seeing it? Did she lose her glasses? Expiration date. Guys, I swear I didn't foam at the mouth and bulge my eyes watching it. Seriously, I like this video. Scout says he actually has scored before. Well, he doesn't say that exactly because we're not talking about the leaderboard, but if we are to somehow believe Scout, then he has more Riz than probably 2/3 of the cast. Also, it almost looks like Scout made something happen at the end of a Smith story, but I kinda doubt it. At the end of the day, Scout gets his hype, talk from God, and becomes the gift to woman he was always meant to be. In the days have worn away, I was kind of hoping we'd see his mom and 7 brothers, but that's what happens when your parents are divorced. What am I talking about? Scout told me his dad died. Scout's potential to be higher on this ranking is really stunted on just how much focus he gets. I mean, the difference between the Meet the Team videos and the replay comic helps signify the slight differences between the characters. Scout's sanity levels, his love life, his bonds with the team. It's just been played so much that slip-ups are bound to happen now and then. Scout may not have won the ranking, but considering how much screen time he's gotten, he ain't complaining. Heavy Weapons Guy is the face of the TF2. First to get a Meet the Team video, Heavy is firmly established as this deliberate man whose every movement has purpose. He is often assumed to be a gentle giant, but really is annoyed by so many whiny babies around him. Heavy has a lot of intention, and you definitely get the idea. Valve takes a lot of care to not make him completely ridiculous, because all the fans have done that. If even the slightest bit of community scene was used for these rankings, Heavy would be immediately dead last. Never mind him being part of the big three. Think about how he's the face of being friendly. Look, I may have my own guilt like many others. I don't have to admit that. Never say your crimes, folks. Okay, but like, check this out. Heavy is calm and collected in appearance and a maniac in the battlefield. Tumblr would call him bipolar, but Tumblr calls everyone bipolar, so nothing's new. Meet the Heavy would easily cement the boundaries of what this character's like, and it's interesting to note, as the franchise developed, Heavy became more reserved. Compared to violent nature and Meet the Sandwich to how stern he is for most of the comic story. His calmness against the bears, his reactions for Sasha and the naked and the dead. I can't tell if this is inconsistent or if it's character development. You know, based on the timeline I set up, Heavy's deeper voice lines in MDM do feel like the character's getting older and may have cooled down on the battlefield. His little shrug that he's fine with dying soon and expiration date also paints a picture that maybe Heavy has had his share of blood and gore. So why isn't he number 1 on this list? Well, he has a lot of exposure and questions start appearing here and there sporadically. On another day, I could see myself placing him number 2 easily, but there's some holes. Sometimes Heavy is in fact goofy, which does question some of his character. Heavy feels a little unnatural in trying to convince Soldier he's American, like why would he care that much? He just nod his head, not put effort into it. Heavy and Meet the Spy is a little too slow compared to Heavy's intelligence usually. You could argue this is clearly only blue Heavy, but remember I see gray Heavy, so I don't know what you're talking about. Heavy in Abominomicon is the real kicker though. Would he really give money to stop a kid from crying? Does he care if people call him fat? I just don't see it. For as much focus as Heavy gets, he really did pull strong though. Not big soup rice. Sniper's a guy you meet in the absolute wilderness who you can tell he knows what they're doing, but you just know this guy's a little too efficient. He's so antisocial, but he also so wants Spy. His motto is be polite, be efficient, have a plan to kill everyone you meet, and then kills the guy reporting him, probably. Spoilers for Team Fortress 2 comics. Skip ahead to somewhere there isn't spoilers. Sniper is revealed to be a New Zealander rather than an Australian, which explains why he isn't some big superhuman like Saxon Hale, but still grew up in Australia. This could actually be psychoanalyzed into why he's always so distant from others, which is already explained in the comics, why am I saying could. There's some great pretense to Meet the Sniper. He sounds sociable and more grounded, while in the comics both Spy and Demo cite him as a lunatic, which he instantly proves. Sniper may be antisocial, but he sure looks relieved to see Scout alive and clearly cares for his adopted parents. Sniper has a good cause to be number 1, but where he falls flat is be polite, ignoring Girardi because polite and efficient will never overlap. Sniper has 1 respectful taunt and a million disrespectful ones and plenty of domination lines. Among taunts, I only want to really pick Valve-made ones, and the Schadenfreude is the one with the most impact. How come Sniper sometimes whispers in lines and then Raptor screams them? I mean, it happens quite often. I don't know if he's getting deaf from all the gunfire or just needs to speak up more. A lot of these inconsistencies could be considered minute, but I do think they reflect the difference between how Sniper is supposed to act and how he actually acts. I'm considering this free will and deliberate. The player maybe do it does not hold up in court. Medic makes being a healer fun. He's a psychotic, bloodthirsty Frankenstein, seeing any human body as a chance to run another experiment to see how many chicken nuggets one could intake before dying. He also loves money. In Meet the Medic, we see his actual prowess for surgery is questionable, and while how consistent with his medical skills could be factored in, he's able to fix teeth and clothing and swindle the devil. This man is capable of anything. He can make you give birth to baboons. I can't tell if he has a lack of skills in Meet the Medic or he simply just doesn't care, which leads to the reason he is only number 2 on this list. Friendship. How much does he really care for his fellow teammates? Early voice lines make him sound like an earlier portrayal of him would be this kind of disgruntled healer.
My skill is wasted on this team.
But his other bloodthirsty lines make it sound more like a god complex. I sometimes wonder why he has no domination lines. I mean, they wouldn't be personal, they'd just be really deranged. He clearly lies to Classic Heavy in the comics about his allegiance, and there are moments in The Naked and the Dead and The Days Have Worn Away that can prove he could care. But could is hard to say when really this could be an attachment to some of the best experiments he's ever had. Soldier, Demoman, Scout, Heavy, we've seen what this man has done with them. They are alive though. Medic's a universally loved character for his twist on the healing class, and that is hard to screw up. So he was very close to being the most consistent, but in the end someone had the edge. Engineer is a soft-spoken Texan who happens to be a whiz with gizmos and gadgets. I can tell what's going on in his head every time. Of course he cuts off his own hand and makes a robot arm. It's simply practical. He seems sane. He talks level-headed in his voice lines.
Boy, this here is just gonna keep happening and happening.
Engineer is old, reliable. You know when he's pushing the limits in science or when he needs to give someone a heart-to-heart like to Pyro or Miss Pauling in The Days Have Worn Away. In fact, comic number 7 is the only real focus NG gets in the comic story, and it's exactly as he always was. Although it could also be noted, Engineer has a lot less focus than most of the other Mercs. But from what we've seen, he knows when to not stick his nose. He's got 11 PhDs after all. He built a stomach teleporter. He's a genius, but still as level-headed as he can be in Team Fortress. He can vibe with the insanity, but still gives it practicality. He's an engineer. He knows when to be friendly. He knows when he needs to be menacing. He knows when there's a problem to be fixed, and most importantly, he's Texan, so he's basically immune to inconsistencies. Tur says the game was rigged from the start. What did this ranking accomplish? Did any of these truly count? I mean, based on the complexity of human nature, fiction or not, what if what I've characterized as inconsistent is really just a side we, the viewer, barely get to see? Have I judged properly what these characters should act like? Did a sniper Schadenfreude taunt me once, leaving me in rage and agony? Are these questions rhetorical or open-ended? Well, I thought exploring who these fellows and Pyros are would help come to appreciate who they really are and how they've changed over the years. This ranking isn't on who's the best character, it's just a little checkup since this team doesn't have a licensed doctor. Did you agree with this list? Oh, you did? That's great. Leave in the comments what you think the ranking should be. Remember to be civil and considerate and only bite people's ankles affectionately. You should also just tell me how great I did, whether you really think that or not. Also, play the game. Watch the videos, read the comics again. Maybe you'll find something I missed. It's probably been a while.